Welcome back, kids. Chapter 4. Um, this is periodization. I never really implemented periodization in my training so far, and that was mostly because it seemed I was completely changing my workout exercises every 2 to 3 months anyways. I would always change the workout, the different exercises, and the different focus areas after each competition because that would highlight something that needed to be improved. Or without competition, it seemed like on a 2 to 3 month basis, I would discover something in practice, SPP for us folks that are aware of the conjugate system, that needed to be improved. So I was constantly changing speed day exercises, not so much max day exercises. After about 10 years, I settled on probably the same group of 12 plus max day exercises that I just keep forever now. But my speed day, volume day, explosive day exercises would change. But we're going to start fresh with this series. So I am implementing periodization with this series of videos. Once again, buy the book. It'll help you out. Every house should have 2 books in it. This is one of them. I'm going to try to point out the differences as I understood the conjugate system in my earlier videos, because that was all based on articles written in the 1990s and 2000s. And some significant changes have occurred. Some changes, maybe I just misunderstood it. But I believe the system's probably constantly evolving. So that would make sense. Plus, after you've run the system for a year or two, you're going to start changing it for yourself anyway. So it's not so important to get the math and the actual recipe down pat. What's important is to get the strategy and the philosophy down, which is basically max days should always go up. If your max days aren't going up, you better go back and change something. This chapter right here gives you a whole bunch of ideas on what you should change. So buy the book, The Conjugate Method. It's here at Westside Barbell on their website. Okay, yeah, here we go. Page 45. Max effort workouts must be rotated each week to make it possible to set a new all-time record. Westside establishes a new all-time record more than 90% of the time. We'll come back to that because I took that as 90% of every week, since every week has a max day. Mondays for squats, Wednesdays for bench. On these max days, we are now maxing out on 2 exercises. That's a change from when I started doing this. We used to just max out on 1. You do a lift at 90, 95, then you try to set a 1 rep max on both these days. Speed days, speed strength days, what I used to call dynamic days, a 3-week wave. So you pick an exercise, you do 70%, 75%, 80%, 12 by 2 for your squatting. After 3 weeks, you change the exercise, you go back to 70%. On the bench, same thing, 3-week wave, 70, 75, 80%. On week number 4, change the exercise, go back. You're doing 9 by 3s. There's significant differences between the squat days and the bench days. And when I apply this to arm wrestling, I try to adhere to the bench days. I think that's closer to arm wrestling. But I'm going to tell you, sometimes as a personal preference, the squat day layouts just seem easier, so I do those. You should experiment and leave a note in the comments on what you think works best. All right, 4 direct periods of periodization. I'm not going to read all of this stuff to you. I'm just going to hit you with the important ones. The first one is accommodation. That's for beginners. You do it once. Since we train all year, we don't have off seasons. You do it once. If you've been training arm wrestling for several months now, you can skip accumulation. The transformation phase is very interesting. He does something called a Circamax, and we will jump into it later. But there's a lot of talk about how much time do you take off before a competition. What Louis does, and he treats benching and squatting differently, but basically for benching, 28 days before your competition, you cut the volume down. So I think you do roughly the same weight, same intensity, but 50% of the volume. 14 days out from competition, you do a Circamax, which is almost your max effort weight on the bar. And then you throw a bunch of bands on it to increase it to over 10%. So if you are trying to get a 100-pound side pressure, you put like 90 pounds on the pulley machine and then 20 pounds of bands on there. So at the top, you're doing 110 pounds. And if you do that, you should have, for him, they say if they hit the Circamax, they'll hit a new record. Us, we're not weightlifters. We're not trying to set a weightlifting record. We just want to be stronger, constantly, always stronger. This is the delayed transformation. This is where some people say, I take 2 weeks off, I don't do anything. That's silly. You do not take 2 or 3 weeks off with no training. You stop training for 2 weeks, you will lose 10% of your strength. This is where they go, 50% of the sets. So the same weight, 50%. Do not take 2 to 4 weeks off. I usually train full blast up until 2 weeks out, cut the sets in half, and train that until I actually have to leave home to travel to go to the event. If I'm driving to it, I will travel. Like if the event's on Saturday, I'll take Friday off. I'll take 1 day off. Nowadays, I'm traveling overseas. I end up with 4 or 5 days off because I have to leave, like work on a Tuesday for a Saturday event. And I feel a little sluggish, but I bring my bands with me and I do a workout or two in the hotel room. I used to work out in the hotel gym, but when you start doing arm wrestling exercises in the hotel gym, I'm pretty sure they'll call security on you. Yeah, that's about it for here. Anyways, buy the book. This is interesting reading. Even if you're not arm wrestling, this is some interesting stuff if you just want to get stronger on your CrossFit or on your football or whatever. Okay, this is how, remember the waves we talked about? So this would be an example of your speed strength day for your squat. So if you got a 500-pound max front squat, you do 350 on the bar, and then you add some bands, and you do, 70%, 75%, 80%. So that's what these are. And this happens a lot. It's 70%. That's the dead weight. There's bands added to this. So sometimes the bands get counted, sometimes they don't. Then you switch exercises for weeks 4, 5, and 6. The percentages are based on your max for that exercise. Okay? So if your front squat has a 500-pound max, it's 70% of the 500. It's not 70% of your regular squat. So if that's got a 700-pound, it's 490. Okay? So this brings up a question. If you're just starting this conjugate system and you have 4 or 5 speed strength exercises and a dozen max effort exercises, you need to know your maxes on all of them. Yeah, I struggled this when I started. What I tell people now is do a Bulgaria week. The Bulgarians were famous for maxing out like daily. So just take a week or two. Take your list of 10 to 12 max effort exercises and just max out on them. You're not really training at this point. You're just testing yourself. Max out on all of them. Those won't be your most accurate max efforts. They'll be a little bit low because you're maxing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But it's a starting point. And it's a reasonable starting point. You're going to get newbie gains anyways. So just do that. When I went out to Brian Shaw, invited me out to help him discuss training for a little bit. We maxed out on arms. I think we did 9 max efforts in one workout. In like 1 2-hour period, we maxed out on 9 exercises. We just need a starting point for us. We're not competing in weightlifting, we're competing in arm wrestling. So, maybe do a Bulgaria week. You'll get all your max numbers pretty quick. Once again, there's a 25% band on all of these. So it's 70% plus 25%. So it's like 95% at the top, okay? But it's 70% at the bottom. And again, we're changing the exercise every 3 weeks. We're changing the percentage each week. You can kind of think of the conjugate method as the change, or it's always changing method, right? You don't want to accommodate a weight load. You want to get like never ending at newbie gains. Newbie gains. We love newbie gains. This I never saw in an article. Okay. Most athletes can only sustain 3 max effort workouts in a row. All right. So they do a max effort. Remember, their max efforts are Mondays and Wednesdays. So they max, and they see it go down. Louis says, okay, week 4, do a repetition workout. We covered that in chapters 2 and 3. It's low weight, high reps. Then heavy workload. This is like 80 to 90%. Sets of doubles and triples. Do that for 4 weeks. Then go back to maxing out. This, I never really did. This I'm gonna use now. But remember, I was training for 2 to 3 months, and I would see my max efforts fall off at about 6 weeks or so, 5 weeks or so. But then I would, deload for a competition, come back, change all my exercises. So this never really became apparent to me. I have several training partners that are following conjugate systems, and the general consensus is they hit new 1-rep maxes for about 5 to 7 weeks. Then they hit a stall or a low spot. So and they've been addressing that by changing the exercise they're doing their heavy volume on. But this right here, keep this in mind. If you get to a point where you miss a max effort 1 week, no big deal. But if you miss a max effort 2+ weeks in a row, think about just doing this. And these heavy volume days, doing reps at 90%, 80%, 90%, they make you strong fast. You find out you start, the first time you do 90%, you do like 6 reps, and all of a sudden then you do 8, then 10, then 12. It's addicting. When you feel mentally, so this little quote right here from the book just explains this. Anyways, this is my idea for us arm wrestlers. Maybe one of these, eliminate the weight completely, still do 80, 90%, all bands. Bands hit different. They hit those tendons, right? And it sparks a reaction. Should be good, should make you stronger, but just try it. Can't remember conjugate system. Always changing stuff. Okay, so this is Louis laying out the weight and the reps, the band tension for a series of squats. What you see is 55% of 400 is 220 pounds, and then that's like the starting point once you're at a 450-pound max squat. These are just tables in there. What is nice to know is when you get to the 3rd week, he cut the volume down. Instead of 12 by 2, he's doing 10 by 2. So the volume actually dropped a little bit. Pay attention to this, because I'm going to look at this. I used to just do as many reps as I can, but from now on, I'm going to try to make sure that my heavy week volume is the same as my light week volume. Or I suppose if you could do more reps, do them. But anyways, he knocks the sets down on week 3. This is a continuation of the table, doing up to the 1,000. Not sure why this is at 70, 75, or 80, but it's the philosophy that we're worried about. Okay, so this is me just taking the same math and applying it to a 100-pound side pressure. Okay, if you get your calculators out, hopefully this comes out to the exact same thing. But I took the same percentages, and these reps are from the bench. It says derived from the squat plan. I think I might have labeled that differently, or I skipped a slide. Sorry. Anyways, this is just the math from the squat stuff. Okay. Okay. The bench waves start at 1 constant percentage of barbell weight. Oh, yeah. On his bench days, he's changing band tension. Okay. And like I said, I think the bench workouts more directly apply to arm wrestling than the squat workouts. But I just don't have this many bands. And I can't make a 6-pound or a 5-pound adjustment in my band tensions. Okay. If you remember earlier, my purple band's 22 pounds, my green band's 34 pounds, my bungee cord's 44 pounds. Theoretically, you could knot them or attach them at different points, but I'm just going to tell you, I find it easier to say, for this month, I'm going to use my purple band and then just adjust the weight. And then, then the next workout phase, I'm going to do the green band and adjust weight. And then I'm going to do the green and the purple and adjust weight. Then I'm going to do like the purple and the black. You get it. Work this out yourself. Chains would be even more complicated. Oh, okay. I remember seeing this. I've seen this multiple times, but this talks about speed day value and okay, this A.S. Prilipin was one of the sources that Louis consulted when developing the conjugate method. He's the one that came up with keeping the bar speed at 0.8 meters per second. So this chart right here, these first 3 columns, is what he says. If you are working at 40% of your max, this is, you want 4 to 8 reps, 36. So you want 36 divided by either 4 or 8. Okay, this is Louis' comment suggestions. Okay, if you're doing 40%, you want to lift it. You want 24 to 48 reps. If you're doing 90%, you want 4 to 10 reps. I'm telling you, take a screenshot, cut this out, tape it to your lifting book. All right. It's just a nice handy thing if you get to the gym and you can't do the exercise you want and you're switching exercises and you didn't really think about it. You just go, oh, it's about 90%, so I'm going to do 10. All right. If you're hitting doubles at first, you're going to do, if you're hitting doubles at first, then you're only going to get 4, right? 4's right in the range. It's at the low end, but it's there. So it'll allow you to adjust your sets and your reps based on your percentages. Very handy chart. I assume it applies to arm wrestling. Everything we read here in this book, we're applying to arm wrestling, but with a pinch of salt. We got to leave room for arm wrestling might not be exactly the same as powerlifting because we're so tendon dependent. This is the Circamax, the delayed transformation. So remember, for their bench, it's like 14 days out, and for the squat, it's 28 days out. We covered it earlier. So here's an 800-pound squatter, right? This is one workout, all right? He starts out at 88%, and then he works up to 107, 8, 9, 10, 111%. So they say if he hits this 510 pounds of bar, 375 pounds of band, that's like 111% of his 800-pound squat. All right. Then he goes, okay, I'm going to set a new squat record at the competition in 28 days. This is 100-pound side pressure. All of this is this math here. Okay. So for us, I would think Do your Circamax according to Conjugate 2 weeks out, and then cut your volume down 50%. Do the exact same weight that you have been training, and that should give you, a little boost. And then all your recovery week is recovering from this one big heavy lift. Another idea is, remember that Bulgaria week we did when we're just setting up our program? I almost think 3 weeks out, maybe you max out on 4 or 5 exercises that week, and then cut your volume down. That's just an idea. I haven't done it, haven't tried it. I'm just considering it now. But I'm definitely going to, before I start my 2 weeks of reduced volume, do a super heavy band workout on whatever pet lift I've been working at for that day. For me, since I'm battling mostly top rollers, it's going to be like a back pressure exercise. All right. Well, that went faster than I thought. All right, kids. Hope you enjoyed it. Call your mom, do your JM presses, and follow this program, and I'll see you in the winner's bracket.